There are timestamps in the description, but you can skip to 1.5 minutes if you want to get straight to the recap. Anyway, this is the Razor Crest. Here in the cockpit, we have Grogu, Mando himself, and Greef Karga. In the side section here, we have these lasers. Then we have the nurse droid, and that's the main four. On the side over here, we have the frozen in carbon slabs that we saw the mithril frozen in. We also have a stormtrooper on the Razor Crest, which is very weird to see, but yes. And that's it. Anyway, onto the video. In episode 1, a blue creature called a mithril is being manhandled in a bar, and just as it looks like he might be killed, Mando walks in. One of the violent perpetrators asks Mando if his armor is made of real Beskar steel. Mando starts fighting all the guys in the bar. The mithril thanks Mando and offers him his credits. He turns out, though, to be the bounty that Mando has been paid to find. Mando has to take him in, and he does. Mando doesn't want a droid-operated speeder, though. He starts off being really wary of droids, if you'll remember, so a human transports them. A creature bursts out of the ice and tries to attack his ship, the Razor Crest, but Mando and the mithril manage to escape. On the journey, the mithril says he needs to go to the vacuum tube, but it's clear that he's looking for an escape. And then he sees a bunch of previous bounties frozen in carbon. Mando sees him snooping, and the mithril creature suffers the same fate. Frozen in carbon. Mando shows his job done to Greef Karga and he gets paid. Kind of. It's less than what he wants and in a currency that he doesn't really want, it seems, but he takes it. Greef Karga tells him then about one job from someone who has very deep pockets. Mando takes it without knowing what the job really is. He goes into a room guarded by stormtroopers and we meet the client who tells him that he needs to deliver the asset alive. All we know so far is that this asset is 50 years old, but everything else is kind of shrouded in secrecy. They give him a tracking fob as well, so off Mando goes looking for the asset. He ends up going to another Mandalorian, an armorer, to whom he gives the down payment he just received from the client. She melts the metal, Beskar, and we get some flashes of memory of when Mando was a child, his village overrun, explosions everywhere. By the way, he does tell the armorer that any leftover Beskar would be for the foundlings. You see, he was one when he was taken in by the Mandalorians, which we'll find out later. The armorer replaces his shoulder pad, a pauldron, that has been damaged. She asks if his signet has been revealed yet, and he says no, not yet. She says soon. He's then back on his way, and he has to fight a couple of creatures and manages to overpower them with the help of Ugnaught, who tells him that many have passed through seeking the same asset, and it's caused a lot of unrest in the valley. He tells Mando that he's helping him because he's never met a Mandalorian, but he has heard stories. As soon as Mando gets the job done, there'll be peace again, and Ugnaught believes that Mando will make quick work of it. Mando has to fight a droid who is also looking for the bounty, and he asks the droid if he's willing to split the reward in half, and the droid agrees, and they become unlikely allies as they take their competitors out. They blast the door open and go in. Mando's fob is going crazy, and the droid senses that there is a life form present. The droid wants to terminate the asset, but Mando terminates the droid instead, and we see the Michelangelo creation of Adam painting moment when the Mandalorian and the kid meet for the first time. In episode 2, the Mandalorian and the kid are making their way through some kind of desert caves when they're attacked. Mando fends off the attackers and realizes that the child is still being tracked by the fob that is still blinking. Mando also realizes that a group of Jawa have stripped his Razor Crest for parts, so he chases and eventually climbs aboard the Jawa trying to get his property back, but they end up electrocuting him and he falls into the desert. He's fine though. They end up going back to the Ugnaught on foot, who tells Mando that he might be able to trade with the Jawas. Ugnaught takes Mando to them to trade for his parts back. The negotiations are tense. The Jawas say that they want the egg. So off Mando goes on another quest to find the egg in a cave. The creature, the owner of the egg, a kind of rhino but called a mudhorn, blasts Mando over, and this isn't going to be easy. He's getting pummeled basically. Then the child puts his hand up, stopping the creature from attacking Mando, who is then eventually able to kill it. Mando finds the egg, hands it over to the Jawas, who feast on its gross yolk. Ugnaught asks what actually happened to the child, who by the way is still sleeping. Clearly it's overexhaustion from using his powers. Mando and Ugnaught get to work repairing the Razor Crest, and it eventually works, starts running again. Ugnaught thanks Mando for bringing peace to the valley, since no more bounty hunters will be looking for the child anymore. In episode 3, the kid and Mando are traveling and the kid starts getting a little mischievous. It's cute. Greef Karga tells Mando that he should deliver the package to the client, so he goes back to the place where he met the client, and the stormtroopers silently greet him at the entrance. The client is very happy to see the asset. Mando sees his prize, a lot of Beskar, and asks the client what his plans are for the child. He does take his reward though, leaving the child there, and he goes back to the armorer. He tells her that his armor lost its integrity and it needs to be replaced. She agrees, but she says it will be conspicuous. Some other Mandalorian come in and see the Beskar and remind Mando that their world was destroyed by the Empire, so there is some tension at first when they accuse him of sharing a table with the Empire. The Mudhorn was responsible for the damage of Mando's armor, so this would be his signet, but he says no, it wasn't an honorable kill and an enemy helped him. She makes him whistling birds as a weapon instead, and she advises him to use them sparingly because they're very rare. As his new armor is being made, we get more memories of his childhood, his parents hiding him in a safe bunker as violence ensues in the village. Later, Mando walks into a bar in his new armor. He meets Greef Karga, who is happy because Mando has made him rich as well. Mando wants his next job, even though Greef Karga thinks that he should relax. His next assignment, he's told, will take him to the ocean dunes of Karnak. He then asks Greef what they're going to do with the kid, and Greef says it's against the guild code to ask. Mando says they're from the Empire, and he asks what they're doing here. The client. Greef tells him, as many others have told us, that the Empire is no more. Just as Mando is about to leave on his next job, he decides to stay after all and goes back for the kid. He spies on Dr. Pershing and the client, who are obviously wanting to conduct dangerous experiments on him. Mando blows down the door and shoots down a couple of stormtroopers. He eventually finds the kid in Dr. Pershing's lab and takes off with him, fighting stormtroopers on the way out. He uses the whistling birds on the remaining stormtroopers and then escapes. Greef Karga seems to sense that something is amiss. Yeah, a lot of people are tracking Mando, Greef Karga being one of them. He tries to get Mando to put the child down, but eventually the other Mandalorians from earlier at the armory arrive and they take out the attackers, or at least hold them off while Mando is able to escape with the kid. Greef Karga tries to stop Mando again, but on his ship, but Mando shoots Greef down and is able to escape. In episode 4, we see a little village, peaceful at first, and then it's being terrorized by Klatooinians who raid the village and destroy everything, leaving it in ruins basically. Mando and the kid are headed for Sorgon. Mando is keen for a break and reckons that nobody will find him there. This is that kind of peaceful village, by the way. They head into a bar where we meet Kara, an ex-shock trooper, for the first time. She leaves the bar and Mando goes after her. They fight, but they eventually become allies, and she says she's taken on an early retirement, which is why she's there. Mando and the kid do plan on moving on though, because she got there first and for some reason they can't both stay there. That evening, two men approach Mando asking him for help. He declines their offer at first. Then he overhears that they live out in the middle of nowhere and they have lodging, so they all head over to the farm with Kara. The village people welcome them and Omera helps them settle in. She asks Mando when last he took his helmet off, and he tells her that the Mandalorians took care of him when his parents died, and this is the way to keep the helmet on in front of others. He hasn't taken it off since he was a kid, in front of anyone else at least. Mando and Kara scout the area to see what's terrorizing the village. They see a print of an Imperial Walker, an ATST. They tell the villagers that they have to move. There's no other option. They can't fight it. Mando suggests teaching the villagers how to fight, and they first decide to build a trap for the ATST and teach the villagers how to shoot and fight. That evening, Mando and Kara fight some Klatooinians in a bar. Then the Imperial Walker fires a shot at the village, but eventually takes the bait and falls into the water in a trap they set for it. While this is happening, the villagers are fighting the Klatooinians, who eventually do run off when they see that the villagers are putting up a fight. Mando tells Cara that if he takes off the helmet, he wouldn't be able to put it back on again. He then decides that he's going to leave the kid there. He's happy. And traveling with Mando is not for a kid. We also get a glimpse of someone in the forest spying on them. Omira invites him and the kid to stay, and he admits that it would be nice, but he doesn't belong there. The kid does, though. The sniper in the forest is aiming at the kid, but Cara manages to track him down and kill him first. They figure then that whoever is tracking them will keep looking, so they can't stay. Mando bids farewell, and they're off again. In episode 5, Mando and the child are being pursued by people who obviously want him to hand the child over, and they have orders to bring Mando in dead or alive. They manage to escape, but the Razor Crest is having some trouble. They eventually make it to Tatooine, where Peli Motto takes a look and tells him he has a fuel leak and a lot of other damage. She agrees to fix it, but his instruction is that she not use any droids. Mando goes out into town, and while he's gone, the kid comes out of the ship and Peli starts to bond with him. Mando goes looking for work in a bar, and someone named Toro Calican overhears him and says he can help him out. Tells Mando about an assassin, Fennec Shand, who is on the run. Mando says no. He knows that this kid's chance of taking her is really low because she's highly skilled. He tells Mando that he needs help with this job because it's his first and he wants to join the guild. Mando eventually agrees and they leave. In the desert they run into some Tuskens. Mando negotiates with them for safe passage across their land. He gives Toro's binoculars to them as a trade. Then they spot some dewbacks. Mando goes down to investigate and it's clear that someone is watching. That sniper takes a shot at Mando and it hits his Beskar, but it holds. It's Fennec Shand, their bounty, who just attacked them. They travel over the dunes at night, but Fennec is still tracking them. Mando gets taken out as Fennec and Toro fight. Eventually they manage to overpower her and make her cuff herself. Mando goes off to find a dewback because they only have 2 bikes and there are 3 of them and they need extra transport. By sunrise, he's not back yet and Fennec tries to get Toro to turn on Mando. She tells him that he should bring in Mando instead into the guild because he shot up a guild in Navarro and Toro would be a legend if he managed to bring Mando in. Just when we think he's going to let her loose, he shoots her and seems as though he's going to turn on Mando, who is worth more. After all, Mando returns on the dewback and sees Fennec shot and Toro gone. He gets back to the Crest at Peli's and Toro is holding her and the kid hostage. Mando manages to disarm him, he pays Peli and they're off again. At the end of the episode, we see someone going back to look for Fennec and they find her laying in the same spot where Toro shot her. The identity of this person isn't revealed though. In episode 6, Mando goes to meet an ex-associate, Ran. They used to get up to shenanigans doing jobs back in the old days. Ran asks Mando about his scuffle with the guild but tells him he's welcome back anytime, no questions asked. Ran is trying to free one of his associates. He needs a ride and the Razor Crest is off the old Imperial and the New Republic grid. A ghost, Ran says. So even though it's not in great shape, that's what they're going to use as transport. Mayfield, a former Imperial sharpshooter, is second in command, and we meet the rest of this motley crew. Berg with the horns, Xian, and a droid named Zero, who's going to be the pilot for this job, and obviously Mando is skeptical. By the way, while working on the ship, Zero sees a message from Greef Karga telling Mando to return the child to the client. At first, Mando is hesitant to take on this job because they have to break into a max security prison, basically, but he eventually goes along with it. After a bit of travel, the Crest scrambles their signal. They've landed. They all make their way inside as the droid in the ship leads them through the prison, which houses some interesting beings. A group of droids spot them and shoot at them, and Mando single-handedly takes them all out. It's a pretty excellent scene. There is a standoff when they find a human on the ship that was only meant to be manned by droids. Mando doesn't want to harm him, but the rest don't care. They shoot him down and then realize his tracking beacon is on, so a distress signal is being sent out. They have 20 minutes to get to their prisoner and get out. They do, and then they lock Mando in his cell. No honor among thieves and all that. Greef's message is still being sent out, or at least showing, to get the asset to the client, and Zero sees this again and is curious. Mando manages to break free. He shuts down sections of the ship, and some of the group loses contact with the droid. They're essentially trapped. Berg and Mando start fighting, and on the ship, meanwhile, the droid Zero is being outwitted by the child child who he's trying to hunt. Mando eventually shoots the droid just as he's about to shoot the kid, and just as the kid is about to use his own powers to take Zero out. In order to save himself, the prisoner offers himself, telling Mando that if he kills him, he won't get his reward. They get back to Ran. He asks where the others are, but the policy is no questions asked. Ran pays Mando, who then leaves. I don't know if I trust Ran, and yeah, he gives orders to kill Mando. Turns out though, Mando secretly attached a tracking beacon to the prisoner, and it's honed in on their location now, so the New Republic pilots fight back and shoot at Ran's ship as Mando and the kid make their way out. By the way, Mando doesn't kill the others, he just locks them in the prison. In episode 7, Mando gets another message from Greef Karga. He says the ex-Imperial guards have grown in number and they're making life in Navarro impossible, so he wants Mando's help. Bring the child as bait to Navarro. Once he gets there, he's to kill the client. Mando's name will then be cleared with the guild, and he'll get to keep the child. They won't stop hunting the child, so a reluctant Mando eventually accepts the offer from Greef Karga. Mando goes back to Sorgon and offers Kara a big reward to help him. She's not in at first until he mentions that the client is Imperial and she comes along. They head back to Ugnaught because the child needs babysitting, and we get Ugnaught's name this episode too. It's Queel. The droid that Mando took out for wanting to kill the child was recovered by Queel, and he reprogrammed it so that it's no longer programmed to kill the child. But Mando is still suspicious of it because he says that not killing goes against the droid's nature. Queel agrees to help to protect the child from Imperial slavery, a situation he himself was once in. After the child attacks Kara during a game of arm wrestling with Queel, says that the story of the Mudhorn now makes sense to him. Remember, the child used its powers to help Mando in his fight against the Mudhorn. They get interrupted before Queel can really explain, but I guess he might have said that the child is protecting Mando. They all land in Navarro. The town is run by ex-Empire, Greef says. He gives Mando a rundown of the plan, and just then they get attacked. Greef gets badly injured and the child heals him. He admits the truth then, that the plan was to actually kill Mando and take the child, but after the child healed him, he couldn't do it anymore. Mando tells Greef to take him as bait instead, and when he's close enough, he'll kill the client. They get there and the client says that he wants to see the baby, but as he's about to open the pram, he gets called away. He gets a call from Moff Gideon, who asks if the child is there and tells the client that he might want to check again if the child is really sleeping. Suddenly, reinforcements are brought in. It's bad. Meanwhile, some of the stormtroopers intercept Mando's message to Queel, telling him to get the kid out of there. The stormtroopers catch up with him. Looks like they've killed Queel, and the child gets taken. At the end of the episode, Moff Gideon steps off his ship. In episode 8, the stormtroopers are making their way back to Moff Gideon and the client with the child. The droid that Queel programmed is a nurse droid, which has been programmed to protect. It arrives on the scene and it kills both stormtroopers and flies off with the child. Just as Kara, Greef and Mando are stuck inside, Moff brings out an E-Web blaster, which could basically blow the whole place to the ground. Mando tells Kara and Greef Karga that he hasn't heard of Moff Gideon since he was a child. We get another memory of his childhood, his parents, and how a Mandalorian eventually saved him, how they arrived at his place of birth and fought the enemy fire. Moff was an officer during the Purge. The nurse droid comes back into town, taking down a whole lot of stormtroopers in his path, and this gives Mando and Greef a chance to come out and shoot at the rest of them. They're still really outnumbered though. They barricade themselves inside again, and Moff gives the order to burn them out. Mando is certain that he's dying, and he tells the others to leave without him. As the enemies are trying to burn them out, the child uses his powers to save them. The droid stays with Mando while the others escape in the tunnels with the child. Since the droid is not a living thing, it's able to remove Mando's helmet and heal him, and we get to see Mando's face for the first time. He eventually joins the others down in the caves. They're all looking for the other Mandalorians for help. When they get there, we see a pile of Mandalorian helmets and armor. They're dead, most of them anyway. The armorer says that they revealed themselves, and this is what happened. She tells Mando about the Jedi and says that he needs to reunite the child with its own kind. Mando asks if he's meant to search the whole galaxy for a bunch of sorcerers, and she tells him this is the way. She tells him that he is basically its father until the child is reunited with its own kind. He has earned his signet, by the way, of the Mudhorn, and she tells him that they're a clan of 2. She also asks him if he trained in the Rising Phoenix, and he says yes, and she offers him a kind of fuel jetpack. After they leave, stormtroopers come in and the armorer takes them all out. Another very excellent scene. As they're all headed to the lava flat, They see that the exit is teeming with stormtroopers and they're basically trapped again. The nurse droid then offers himself as an unwitting sacrifice. He tells them that there is no scenario where both he and the child survive, and because he's programmed to protect the child, he will self-destruct near the stormtroopers, and this will clear a way for Mando and the company to exit the caves. There is an emotional moment between the nurse droid and Mando, who have kind of bonded over their shared purpose of keeping the child safe, and the nurse droid has since rather earned Mando's trust. The droid destroys itself and all of the stormtroopers in the process. Moff Gideon is close by though. Mando manages to fly onto Moff's ship and hang on long enough to attach an explosive to it. He's off their trail, for now at least. Cara wants to stay in Navarro now that things have been somewhat resolved there. Greef offers Mando a place in the guild. They say their farewells. He also says goodbye to Creel, and he and the kid are off again. At the end of the last episode of season 1, we see the wreckage of Moff's ship. It's being picked apart by the Jawa, but of course, he isn't dead yet. In episode 1 of season 2, Mando and the child go somewhere to see someone named Gor Koresh. He asks where to find the other Mandalorians who might be able to help him reunite the child with its kind. Gor Koresh threatens Mando because he wants his Beskar, which has increased in value. Mando ends up taking everyone out and he catches up with Gor Koresh, who has since run off, and Gor Koresh eventually tells him that there is a Mandalorian in Tatooine, so they go back to Peli's place. Mando tells her that he has to bring the child back to his own kind, and he's looking for Mos Pelgo, a place. It's not really on the map anymore though, since it has been wiped out by bandits. They do get there and he asks for a Mandalorian, and he meets a marshal who wears Mandalorian armor, so not a real Mandalorian. He's the marshal of Mos Pelgo and he says he got the armor from some Jawas. Mando demands the marshal take the armor off, and there is a pretty tense standoff then, but before anything happens, the ground starts shaking and sirens start going off. There seems to be something moving under the sand, and the marshal tells Mando that the creature, a crate dragon, has been terrorizing the town. He asks Mando's help in killing it, and in return, he'll give Mando the armor back. They form an alliance with the Tusken, who want to kill the dragon as well, and with help from the village people, because Mando and the marshal can't do it alone, even with the Tusken. With the help of the group, Mando manages to plant explosive inside the belly of the dragon and kills it. Marshal thanks him, the village people rejoice, Mando takes Marshall's armor, and he and the kid are off again. Then at the end of the episode, we see Boba Fett watching from a distance. In episode 2, Mando loses his transport after being ambushed in the desert, so he has to go back to Peli's on foot, and Dr. Mandible offers to help find the other Mandalorians. A covert is close, Peli tells him. We then meet the Frog Lady this episode. She needs her eggs fertilized by the equinox, or her line will die out. She says that her husband, who is there, has seen the Mandalorian, so Mando is going to transport her there and get that intel. While they're on a ship, we see that the child has his eye on the fish lady's spawn and he eats a couple. The sector is under New Republic jurisdiction and they need to confirm that Mando and his ship are non-imperial, so he has to put his signal beacon on. He tries to bypass the New Republic X-Wings. They manage to escape, but they make a pretty rough landing. The Crest looks like it's toast after being shot at several times. Mando goes down to look for the Frog Lady's eggs, and the child has eaten more of them. They're also stuck for a while, so they have to wait until morning for any hope of repairs. The Frog Lady eventually bypasses a droid's code so she can communicate with Mando in English, and she emphasizes the urgency of needing to get her eggs fertilized. He gets to work fixing the ship and then goes wandering off to look for the Frog Lady, who appears to have walked off. He finds her in a sort of hot spring trying to keep her eggs warm. The child also wanders off as well and starts eating some eggs that he finds, which triggers others to all start hatching, and weird spider-like creatures come crawling out. They all run back to the ship as a giant spider monster, the mother presumably, chases them with her spider children. I'd skip over this if you're an arachnophobe. It's a really gross scene. Eventually they all get out when someone from the New Republic has been helping by shooting at the spiders. They tell Mando that there is a warrant out for his arrest, but they leave him be because basically the good he's done balances the scales. He gets to fixing the ship and they're off again. In episode 3, they're on their way to Trask and they make a pretty disastrous landing in the water, but they're there and the Frog Lady gets reunited with her husband. As the Frog Lady and her husband are showing him the way to the inn to find other Mandalorians, we see a hooded woman watching from the distance, but she quickly disappears. A barkeep tells Mando that others of his kind have been through there and he knows someone who might help bring Mando to them. It's a few hours sail though. During the journey, the octopus men who are meant to be helping throw the kid into a cage underwater. Obviously, Mando jumps in after him and they're both locked in. Other Mandalorians suddenly come to the rescue. The the clan of 2 is saved. Bo-Katan, the leader of this group of Mandalorians, takes off her helmet, much to Mando's surprise. She tells him that he is a child of the Watch, a kind of cult that broke away from the Mandalore society because they wanted to re-establish the ancient ways. Bo-Katan's Mandalorians do take off their helmets though. Bo-Katan tells Mando that she can lead him to one of the Jedi, but she needs his help with a mission first. Mando drops the child off with the frog lady, whose spawn eggs are starting to hatch, and he goes on his mission to help the other Mandalorians steal some weapons. They manage to take down a bunch of stormtroopers. Bo-Katan also wants something else before she can take the throne of Mandalore. She tells Mando she wants the whole ship, but this isn't what he signed up for. She's changing the deal. She tells him she won't help him find the Jedi, he has to help her. We find out that she's also looking for the dark saber. At the end of the episode, she tells Mando to go to the city of Caladan on the planet Corvus. There she'll find the Jedi. By the way, the Crest has been patched together, basically with fishing nets. It's still falling apart, but they managed to make it out. In episode 4, Mando and the kid decide to go back to Navarro to get some ship repairs done. They land and they're greeted by Greef Karga and Kara. Of course, there is another job for Mando to do while he waits for the repairs to be done. We see Mithril again, who is now an accountant for Greef Karga to pay off his debts. Kara and Greef tell Mando about a military base with lots of weapons, and they want it off the planet to keep Navarro safe, so they want to destroy this base. The base was meant to be empty, but when they get there, they do come across some stormtroopers, and they find out that it isn't a military base, it's a lab. Dr. Pershing is involved, and we see him reporting about a failed experiment because he only managed to draw a limited amount of blood from the child without killing him. They'll suspend the experiment until they can get another sample. Mando, who was also under the impression that Moff Gideon was dead, finds out that he's still alive. He's the brains of the operation, and who the client was acquiring the child for, if you'll remember. Mando goes back for the child as the others fight their way off the base/lab with stormtroopers in hot pursuit. With the help of Mithril, the base is also blown up behind them. Mando also eventually helps them out, but he's on his way again before Gideon finds out that they're there. At the end of the episode, we see an Empire officer telling a droid that it'll be rewarded for planting a tracking beacon on the Crest on Gideon's orders, who says that they'll be ready next time. In episode 5, we're introduced to the Jedi Ahsoka Tano. She comes before the magistrate who's refusing to give something to her. Ahsoka Tano tells the magistrate that people are suffering under her rule, and she gives her 1 day to surrender or face the consequences. Mando and the child land on Corvus and head into town, but as he starts asking around, he gets summoned by the magistrate. On his way in, he sees several prisoners held up on sticks, being periodically electrocuted. The magistrate has a proposal for him to kill the Jedi, who are in fact the enemy of the Mandalore. He tells her that his price is high, and she offers him a spear made of pure Beskar in exchange for killing Ahsoka Tano. He asks where to find her, and then he's on his way. He does find her, and they fight at first before he calls for a truce and tells her that Bo-Katan sent him. She meets the child and communicates with him and tells Mando that his name is Grogu. He's been trained for many years, but he was hidden at the end of the Clone Wars, and then someone took him. Remember, the child is 50 years old by the time Mando finds him. She tells him that she's only known one other being of this kind, Yoda. She asks if he can still wield the Force. That's what gives him his powers. And she also tells Mando that the Jedi Order fell a long time ago. Ahsoka Tano tries to test Grogu the next morning, but he doesn't listen to her. When Mando tries, he does it. It's clear that they've formed an attachment. Ahsoka Tano says that she can't train him. His fear and his anger make him vulnerable, and she's seen what that can do. He tells her he'll help her with her mission against the magistrate if she sees to it that Grogu is trained, and so they form an alliance. They pretend that she's killed the Mandalorian as she shows up to the magistrate. As the prisoners are about to be executed, Mando arrives. The magistrate and Ahsoka Tano finally face off, the magistrate using the spear of Beskar steel, but eventually Ahsoka Tano is the victor. She does ask the magistrate where her master is, the Grand Admiral Thrawn. Towards the end of the episode, she gives Mando the spear, telling him that it belongs to a Mandalorian, and one of the villagers has taken on the role of magistrate. Mando goes then to retrieve Grogu from the ship. It's time to say goodbye, but Ahsoka Tano tells him once again that she can't train him. She tells him to go to the planet Tython. There's a temple there, and Grogu will choose his path. A Jedi might come searching for him, even though there aren't many left. And once again, Mando and the kid are off. In episode 6, they make it to Tython and Mando puts Grogu on the Seeing Stone. It looks like the kid is meditating, but they might be in danger from an incoming ship. The force field around the stone repels Mando when he tries to approach the kid. Boba Fett appears and tells Mando he's been tracking him. He says he's there for the armor that Mando took from Cobb Vanth, and the armor was his father's, now it's his. Mando doesn't believe he's a Mandalorian. Fennec Shand is also working with Boba Fett. That's who rescued her in the desert, in Tatooine. They eventually all lower their firearms, but as they start negotiating, another ship arrives. Stormtroopers all run out, but Fennec and Boba Fett are taking them all out. We get some pretty excellent extended fight scenes here. Mando uses his whistling birds and he and Fennec take out the rest of the Stormtroopers. Boba Fett also returns with his armor on that he retrieved from the Crest. The remaining Stormtroopers go back to their ship and fly away, knowing they're no match for the three, but Boba Fett takes them down as they're in the air as well. Then suddenly, someone fires at the Crest, completely destroying it. Moff Gideon has arrived on Tython. He sends out dark troopers who grab the child. Mando surveys the wreckage of the Crest. There's basically nothing left of it, so he's lost a lot today. We learn that Boba Fett's father was a foundling who fought in the Mandalorian civil wars. Mando acknowledges that, indeed, the armor does belong to Boba Fett, who says that until the child is returned safely, they, meaning he and Fennec, are in Mando's debt. Meanwhile in Navarro, Cara has been made Marshal of the New Republic. Mando goes to Cara for help tracking down Mayfeld, who is now a prisoner. Mando needs help finding Moff Gideon's light cruiser, and because Mayfeld is ex-Imperial, he still knows his Imperial protocols and clearances, so he might be able to help. Moff Gideon, meanwhile, is pleased to see Grogu using his powers to take out some of the Stormtroopers, but obviously notices that his weakness is that using his powers depletes him and makes him tired. He tells his officer to send a message to Dr. Pershing, letting him know that they have their donor. In episode 7, Cara goes to collect the inmate Mayfeld, who reluctantly agrees. They need the coordinates for Gideon's cruiser, and Mayfeld tells them that there's a secret hub on Morak, and if they can get Mayfeld there, there is a refinery where he can get the coordinates. Mando goes disguised as a stormtrooper. As they're traveling, they're pursued by pirates who manage to jump onto their vehicle, and Mando has to fight them off. There are many more in pursuit. Fortunately, eventually stormtroopers also come to their aid, mistakenly assuming that they're Imperial. Mayfeld is nervous. Van Ness, who he once served under, is there. Mando decides then that he'll do it, even though he's told that a terminal will have to scan his face, meaning he'll have to reveal it. Van Ness almost catches Mando out, and Mayfeld uses his Imperial knowledge to kind of smooth talk Van Ness, lest their cover is blown. Eventually they make their way out of the refinery and Mayfeld blows the whole thing up. Cara and Mando agree to a cover-up, pretending that Mayfeld died during the operation, and he earns his freedom. He walks away. Mando has the coordinates and they're off again. At the end of the episode, he sends a message to Moff Gideon telling him that he'll be back with the child soon. In the final episode of Season 2, Episode 8, Boba Fett is going after the ship that has Pershing. They board the ship and Pershing says that the kid is still alive. Mando asks Bo-Katan for help, tells her that it could help in her effort to take back Mandalore. She agrees to help and she says that Gideon has the dark saber that belongs to her. Dr. Pershing is a hostage now and he gives the group some info on Gideon's light cruiser, the security on board, and how and where the child is being kept. They make it on board, a lot of fighting ensues, and eventually Mando gets to where Gideon and the child are. Gideon guesses that the group is looking for the Darksaber as well. Whoever wields it has the power to take the Mandalorian throne. Mando says to keep it, he just wants the child. Gideon says that he has what he needs from the child, his blood. That has the potential to bring order to the galaxy. As Mando is about to take the child, Gideon attacks him from behind and they fight. Mando disarms Gideon and brings him to Bo-Katan and the rest of the group, a prisoner. Bo-Katan can't take the Darksaber though. She has to defeat Mando in combat for it. Mando just wanted to take it and be done with it, but she can't. That's not how it works. Just then, a platoon of dark troopers come aboard. It looks bad. They're about to break down the door when a Jedi, connects it with a child obviously, takes out all of the dark troopers, and eventually we see it's Luke. Mando says goodbye to the child and promises that they'll see each other again. Then he takes off his helmet and gives the child his blessing to go with Luke. There is a post-credit scene, by the way. We see Fennec and Boba Fett fight their way into Bib Fortuna's quarters. Boba Fett kills him and pushes him off the throne and sits there with Fennec at his side. Anyway, that's it for this video. Feel free to share your thoughts below and thank you for watching.